These people have drawn their lines in the sand, and I think you should act accordingly. Talked about it before, and that a lot of you guys, not necessarily people that watch my videos, but just people out there in general who try to place they think they're rational. They try to place that on their enemies. They try to place that on other people. And unfortunately, it gets them burnt. It gets them in trouble. And a lot of you guys are culturally inept. What's happening right now is that people that have, for whatever reason, decided that they were going to draw some kind of ideological line in the sand, and it was going to align with what your position was on mandatory vaccinations, mask, really centered around the whole COVID-19 thing. And I think it's important that you understand that they are the aggressors here. The people that are wanting these sorts of masks, or rather the vaccination mandates coming from government or governmental pressure, those guys are the aggressors here. They are the ones that have made it clear where their stance is. And everybody else is having to react accordingly to that. Like, I don't want people to get in this habit of like, it's a, well, even sort of, okay, this person did this and that person did that, and it is coming together. It makes it for a very dishonest narrative there. No, this is coming completely from them and that side, and they're the aggressors, because at no point has folks, let's say, that were more so on my side of this, were we saying, or were we leading with this idea that you should not be allowed to wear a mask, or you should not be allowed to be vaccinated? That was never the case. So again, it's one-sided here, and I think it's important before we continue on. But obviously, you guys are learning, and you should have known the whole kumbaya, we're in this together, was nonsense. That turned into, you should be ostracized from society if you don't do what it is that we want you to do, very quickly. Went from, we're in this together, all of these people are heroes, people that work these types of jobs, and then out of nowhere, or rather took some months, and then they moved on, and now they're saying, well, if you are a nurse, you should be fired. If you don't get the vaccinations, if you are in this industry and you decide not to get the vaccination, you should be fired. You should be ostracized from society, passports, so we can separate ourselves from you, wristbands, who knows, armbands maybe are on the horizon. This is a one-sided thing, but they've drawn that line in the sand. And here's another example of why it's important to pay attention to that as they ramp up their sort of language and rhetoric. Right here, as you see, this is coming from Claire Berlinski. And this tweet is still up. You guys can check that out. What this person does is something. Let's just say that. But she quotes, "The anti-vaxxers are playing with fire. No one gets to kill American children without triggering a Jacksonian response. It may be a stupid, brutal response, but it will happen." So that may sound like nothing, but let's really dive into what she's suggesting here, rather what she's saying. And as I said in the response here, I'll read it real quick before I go on. I said, "This has been how every act of democide, which is basically murder, genocide by way of the government, conjure up a fake narrative that presents a group, and that's usually a very large group, as if they have done something bad, even though you are the aggressor. Also, you can justify your own violence. Check mark. They somehow aren't inciting violence, though, when they get to say things like that." What she is suggesting, and what she is rather doing, is just justifying, making sense of the idea that there would be a response, albeit a violent one, towards people who are, quote unquote, anti-vaxxers. Remember, anti-vaxxer does not mean that you are against all vaccinations. That's not what that means. Anti-vaxxer is basically anybody, they've even redefined it by way of Webster, people that are in opposition to, let's say, vaccine mandates. They will call you a anti-vaxxer. So that is a big, large pool of people that does not just consist of people that are against every single form of vaccinations, which a lot of people that have been called this aren't. Actually, maybe this one with COVID-19, but not necessarily every single vaccination. They don't care. The idea is to paint you in a bad light and to put you in a box in which you are the enemy. So if they end up doing something that requires aggression, violence upon you, is justified. The narrative that they run with here is this idea that you're killing kids. See, that is such a, and it's rich, obviously, coming from the side of leftists, but that is such a crazy thing to try to present or push out there. And you're placing that on that's a very serious accusation that you're placing that on someone. And it's because they're saying that people are hospitalized, even though the numbers aren't reflective that, like, there's this big growing issue of children becoming sick or dying from this virus, including this Delta variant. But they're still going to say this because that's the narrative that they've run with. Is more infectious, contagious, and therefore more kids are being testing positive for it, and you're killing kids. So if we want to, I don't know, throw you in a gulag, well, we're justified in doing so because, hey, you're killing kids and you're a bad person. So you got to watch this. And I don't want you to be oblivious to the idea as this rhetoric continues to ramp up, because as you've seen, it's accelerated. It's accelerated over the past year and some change, your position on this, and they've gotten more and more and more violent with their rhetoric and what their basically inclinations are and what they really are implying in the policies it is that they are advocating. And that is that you are the enemy there. Okay? Bad things should happen to you. And it should come by way of the state. It should come by way of the government, either orchestrating it directly, funding it, subsidizing it, whatever. But something should happen to you. Because, well, you don't want vaccine mandates. You don't want mask mandates. They say you don't take the virus seriously. All of these sorts of things, all because they want to make sure that they can paint you in the absolute worst light so they can justify every single amount of bad behavior it is that they're going to really put towards you. And it's important that you pay attention. You wonder why I have no tolerance for these types of people. Why I cuss them out? Why I call them goofy names and stuff like that? Because that's how you have to deal with these people. These people have made it clear that they are my enemy. Now, again, it's one side. It's not. I'm just responding accordingly. It's you coming up to me, punching me in the face, and I have to defend myself from this. Because you're the bad person here. I know you're trying to paint me as the bad person so you can justify your bad behavior, but you're the bad person here, objectively speaking. Everybody that is advocating for vaccine mandates is a piece of shit. I'm not even going to pretend like there's a redeeming quality about you. I have no reason to do that. None. You're talking about mandating that people have something injected into their body for something with a 99% survival rate, and then the science continues to change month to month. It continues to change. What you said the virus was supposed to do, CDC goes from, well, it stops all infections or 95% of the infections and all of that sort of stuff. And the spread of all of that to, well, maybe you can't, maybe you still can pass it. So as the science continues to change, they still want these. There's no redeeming qualities about these people. They're pieces of shit and should be handled accordingly. And what they're doing right now, if you don't know what gaslighting is, this term has been used a lot, but a lot of people don't seem to know what it is. That's what they're doing. What they do is they try to conjure up a narrative to make it seem like you're the crazy one, right? Like you don't see what it is that you see. So when you react because of the act of aggression that they're putting out there, you react accordingly. They like, wait, you're such a bad person. How dare, clutch pearls. How dare you? How dare you? No. We're not allowing you to do that. See, I've been fairly consistent on this topic since it became a thing. When we're talking about COVID-19, you can watch my videos dating back to February and March. You can watch my streams dating back then. I've been very, very consistent. Never once have I gotten on the stream. Never once have I got on the video and said that you shouldn't get the vaccinations. Never have I told you that. Never have I claimed that. Have I said I'm not getting it? Absolutely. I've never told you that. My position has been as such. If you want to get it, fine. If you want to get a mask, fine. That's your right to do it. What you don't have the right to do is use aggression upon me to force me to have to do what it is that you want me to do, be it in put a diaper on my face, be it in, let's say, injecting something into my body. Now, they like to think, well, this is different because you may possibly get someone sick. Now, they don't ever know, right? It's like you may do this. You could have possibly done this. And they don't apply that logic to anything else. They don't apply that logic to other viruses. They've never done that. But now, or rather last year in 2020, they get to up and change, and they expect you to adjust. Even though, again, going back to what the science is saying, when it comes to you being infected, the viral load is virtually not even different from a vaccinated person to an unvaccinated person. The CDC themselves have come to that conclusion. Therefore, that narrative has to be retired anyway. You have nothing to stand on. You're just an aggressive piece of shit. I'm not pretending. I know there's other guys try to talk around it. I'm not pretending that a person that is advocating for someone be forced to inject something into their body like that for something with a 99% survival rate. And we're not even talking about a traditional vaccine, right? We're not talking about something that just utterly makes you immune. That's not what we're discussing. You're talking about stuff that you got to get boosters for every single year. And something that they have, again, already confirmed. They're talking about this new Lambda variant that may not even be able to be stopped by way of the vaccine. So, dude, that argument or non-argument has to be retired. You have nothing, no leg to stand on. It just boils down to you being an aggressive, authoritarian piece of shit. And what you do is mask your authoritarianism with humanitarian efforts. You care so much about the old people. You care so much about kids. You care so much about people living their lives. In any event that they don't agree with you, what do? You ostracize them. You paint them in the most negative light that you can, because it was never about giving a shit about how other people were. You don't give a fuck about their mental health. You showed them that during the lockdowns, man. Suicides, domestic violence, all that shit go up. You don't take credit for that. It's just lock everything down, stay in a bubble. That's all it ever was. And in the event that someone says, you know what, maybe we should not force people to inject stuff in their body, what do? You immediately ostracize them. You paint them in the worst possible light. You do not give a fuck about other people's lives. Stop it. Just admit it. Soon as someone says they disagree with your position on the vaccine, you call them all sorts of names, and you've made it clear in the policy that you advocate that you want them ostracized from society. You don't care about them. That's fraud humanitarian efforts. Fraud. You don't give a shit. I'm tired of, and I'm not doing that. Some of y'all can do that. Fine. But I'm not pretending like these guys have any redeeming qualities. Any person advocating that someone like that line in the sand, they drew that. If you are willing to force someone to inject something into their bodies, especially these people that are of healthy age, they're trying to inject kids. Okay? People that their own data says are the least likely to get sick or hospitalized from this. And you think that people should be forced to take that? Again, we're not talking about something that is a death sentence. The vast majority of people that catch this will not be hospitalized and will not die. But you want them to be forced to inject themselves. There's no redeeming quality about you. I understand you might claim to be this humanitarian. You might claim it's about saving lives. You are an authoritarian piece of shit. That's it. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.